he's such an incredible player. He's a great teammate. He's a pillar in the community. He's everything that you'd want a player to be. And so, normally I don't comment too much on, particulars, but I'll kind of make an exception in this case with Francisco because I think he's deserving of it. We'd love for Francisco to be here long term. I think Francisco shares that desire. We have, and our ownership has, made meaningful efforts to try to do that, and so has Francisco. And he and his representative, David Meter, continue to express to both us publicly and privately that he'd like to stay here and like to stay in Cleveland. And I think that's been consistent with what he shared with all of you. Now, how do we make that happen is where it gets difficult. And it's a really hard situation, primarily because of the, it's not because of a lack of desire. It's not because of a lack of desire on our part, or not because of a lack of desire on Francisco's part, but more when you look at the economics of baseball and the realities of building championship teams in a small market, it gets really tough. And so the interest is there, the desire is there on both sides to try to get something done, and whether or not that's possible, we just don't know.
Do you still see a path toward making that happen? Because if he signs the kind of contract that he could command in the open market, you're looking at him and one player absorbing maybe a quarter of your payroll. Is there a model where you could build a consistent winner under those circumstances? And
that's the biggest challenge. Again, it's not the desire. I think both Francisco's been pretty clear about how he feels. I think we're pretty clear on what we would like to see happen. But is there that right value in which we can still, we can extend Francisco and still build a championship team around him? Because that's really what we're seeking to do. And that's ultimately what Francisco would want too. He doesn't want this signed in Cleveland for a long term and have that compromise our ability to build a championship team.
And that's
okay, Chris Antonetti, until he said what he said at the end, some people might think, oh, they might be only $1 million apart or something like that. The problem is we're talking multi-millions year after year after year. I think that's what fans are confused with.
Yeah, and I think this was smart by the Indians. And again, I'm not saying they did it for this reason. I'm sure they wanted to revisit where he and his agent believe they are. But they had been taking it on the chin. Every time Francisco Lindor says, I love Cleveland, I want to stay here, I get emails and look on Twitter and people are saying, oh, see that, he wants to be here, and then the Dolans still won't make it happen. Well, that's not the issue. The issue is he willing to take less? Because if he's not going to stay here.
Right.
I mean,
Cleveland's not
tell
going to
me
be the
what
biggest
guy did. Who signed here before?
Nobody. And I was just thinking as Chris Antonetti was going through the litany of things on both sides of the issue, I'm thinking they didn't even talk that nice about Jim Thome when they had the opportunity. I mean, they're going, it's scripted. We know it's scripted, and that's okay. That's the way it's done these days.
I think they have to prove to the fan base that they're making a reasonable, valid effort to keep one of the hallmark players in the game right now, and they should be. So, but the idea that since they both want this to happen, that's a good sign, I'm not quite buying that yet.
Okay, so, but you think they're sincere, both sides are sincere? Yeah, I do too.
Why wouldn't they want to keep him?
No.
And why wouldn't he want to be here?
No, but they put up a fight against Thome a little bit. And Thome was as beloved in their minds as anybody we've had.
Well, when you say put up a fight against him, what do you mean? Did they?
I think they made it, when it was all said and done and they compared or it came out what we thought was the offer, it wasn't a sincere offer.
Well, it certainly wasn't anywhere close to turning his head. And,
correct.
And I think the same thing is going to happen here. I do. And I wouldn't say it's an insincere offer because of that. I would just say it's going to be an inadequate offer.
All right, so if they hold fast to that 25% figure, that they don't want it more than that tied up in one player, is it possible they can come up? Although they've got some guys on the cheap. You know, Ramirez is on the cheap. A couple of other guys are.
You know, I guess one of the questions, and I don't mean this to turn it around to the fans, I'm just curious what you think. If they signed him tomorrow to an 8-year, $275 million deal, okay?
How much is that a year?
It's over 30.
Okay.
You know, 30, 35, something like that. How many season tickets would they sell before the season
nowhere near
starts?
that. Well, first of all, you'd have to spread it out over those 8 to 10 years. Yeah. I don't know that it would be totally.
Would they sell 10,000 more? Would they sell
for this
2,000 more?
For this year?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be here anyway.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, he's here now,
I'll tell you
and
what,
nobody's rushing.
No, but if they did that, if they offered him 10 years.
8 years.
8 years, I'm sorry, even more so. If they offered him 8 years, the fans who've been complaining about Dolan and how they treat players like that, I think it would be incumbent upon them to go to the phones, go to the box office, and do something, because that's what you've been asking them to do.
And I think some still will. But in this, you know, we talk about this climate. Are people going to buy season tickets for a team that it's hard to watch climate-wise for the first 2.5 months of the season?
You can't sell tickets
sometimes.
April and May. We know that.
So anyway, that's all. And I'm not saying that because of that they shouldn't make a real offer to him. No, they should try to get him. And if there's any way possible, you would think that would be the signing. That we talk about how if the 2016 World Series had gone the Indians' way,
right,
the Dolans would sort of be off the hook with the fan base. That would be the signing that would get him off the hook.
All right, that all being said, I think they proved it last year, not to say they can prove it again this year, and not to say it's not a small sample size. But if you didn't have Lindor and you had the kind of pitching you had last year and this year, you could still make a run in this division. Now, would you rather have Lindor? And the answer, of course, is yes.
Yeah. You know, it's going to be interesting. You know, I think the only way I could see the Dolans, if they make a sincere offer and if we learn that he's turned down that's going to be the thing. Well, he's decided not to accept a $200 million offer. You know, say they offer him 8 years, $200 million.
Okay.
And he goes, nah, that's just, sorry.
Yeah,
so
and another $1 million won't help.
Then who does the onus go on at that point? Does it go on Lindor or does it stay on the Indians?
Well,
but the only way I think if they make a legitimate offer like that and he turns it down, you know, the only way they could really fall out of favor with fans again soon would be if it's trade season and they're still in the hunt, trade deadline, and they're in the hunt and they decide to trade him anyway. Then I think fans would go.
If you're a Detroit Tiger fan,
mm-hmm.
and you paid the price for Miguel Cabrera,
mm-hmm.
which is totally outrageous. I don't even remember what the numbers are. But he gave them 3 or 4 good years out of that, and that's it, assuming he doesn't make a miraculous recovery from whatever he's got. If you're a Detroit Tiger fan, do you pay the price of not being competitive for 6, 7 years to get those 3 years out of Cabrera?
I wouldn't be too happy about it, would you?
No.
So that's the question. And, you know, listen, I think we know the answer. I think we know that he's not going to re-sign here. But right now, I don't blame him for saying he wants to, and I don't blame the Indians for saying they want him to.